I am Lisa Singer, and I am the event editorial manager at MediaPost. And this is Insider Summit BTS, where we get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers. And with me today is Denise Vitola, and she is the VP of Brand Integration, PR, Social, and Influencer for Consumer Health at Bayer. That's a mouthful. Welcome, Denise.
Well, thank you for having me. And it certainly is a mouthful, but it's a mouthful of really exciting things. And I'm blessed to have the job that I do because I do so many fun things within the company. So thanks again for having me here.
Yeah, no, it's and we just spoke recently. You are going to be joining us next week in Santa Barbara, and you'll be presenting a case study with using influencers in holistic marketing. So we're
Yes.
excited for that. But what I wanted to do, obviously with this is to find out a little bit more about you behind the scenes, in terms of
Yeah.
what makes you tick. And so I'm really glad that you're able to do this. So we'll first just talk about that a little bit in terms of where your career started from and what were you always wanting to be a marketer, or did it kind of evolve into this sort of, you laugh a little bit. So I think there's a story there.
Well, it's funny because it's like, well, how far do we want to take that back? Because when I was 7, I thought I wanted to be an FBI agent.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you know, but, being very realistic, I got into the PR side of things when I graduated from college. And it was interesting and fun. And I was doing a lot of events and, working with celebrities. But there was the whole side, the earn side of PR, which is the most important side of PR, that I was like, oh God, I really don't love that. So I began evolving my career and working more in an integrated marketing space, at other agencies where I'd moved on and moved to working on brands that work in that like integrated agency process. So J&J does it, Unilever does it, and of course, P&G. And I spent a long time working on P&G. And that's where I said, okay, this is really the sweet spot of where the magic happens. And this is where I want to focus my career. So that's how I really got into the more of the marketing side of things. And it's certainly an integrated marketing side of things, I'd say.
Well, when you say integrated, are you talking about, just as I sort of said, your title had a lot included in that, but because that's integrating, it's PR, it's brand, all of that. Is that what you're talking about in terms of what you found as your sweet spot?
Yeah, I think it's, job title aside, it's when you sit together and ideate around a campaign and you think about, how does this look in store? How's it going to look, in an email campaign? How's it going to show up on e-commerce if we're doing any, POS materials online or offline? Are there any FSIs that are going to, make sense for this campaign? And then PR and social and all of those other things. And, I've seen through, the results that when you put all of those components together, you're going to see the most success for the brand. And for each of those disciplines, you could go off and do a, advertising campaign and get great success from it. But when you put it all together, that like say success is here, when you do that advertising campaign, plus it's going to have success much greater.
Well, and okay, aside from, your initial ambition of being an FBI agent, I myself wanted to be a parachute jumper or a vet. It was tossed up between the two. But you went into PR. Talk about, and you have mentioned how it's evolved, but just what was the mindset there? Like, what was it that about you that you knew that this was where you wanted to go, and then how that has evolved? Has your idea of what you were doing changed? Or have you changed as you've been moving
Yeah.
forward?
Gosh, there's like 3 questions in one there, things floating in my mind. And I'll start with, I've played sports my whole life. So I'm hugely competitive. And, I just, at the onset of everything, I'm like, whatever I do, I want to be like really successful. So, I'm going into it and I'm like, what am I passionate about? And how can I really be a change agent? Because when I step into a situation, and that's today as well, like what's your biggest problem? And that's when I worked at an agency and I'd meet a client, tell me your biggest problem, I'm going to fix it. And I do. And that's what I do. And that's what has driven a lot of my success in my career. So to kind of get back to that, in a way, what drove that is I talked about me being in sports. So when I got out of college, I was like, oh, I want to do something with sports. And that's where I ended up at a sports PR marketing agency where I started doing a lot of, like I said, events. I was going to the Super Bowl, I was going to the Olympics, I was going to different tennis national championship games and all of this great stuff, and really effectively like getting consumers more interested in something in a unique and different way, So like one of my clients was a financial institution, and wow, it's like but it's like tie that in with something that's resonating with the consumer, and it becomes more interesting and relatable and easier to talk about. So, that's really what was at the beginning driving where I was going and how I was going to, shape my career.
Well, and you mentioned, you want to be a game changer, and I know we talked about this a little bit, so I'm not going to, feel talking about our hair, because we both had that when we first started out, feeling like you had to have that professional cut as women, being in a professional field, whatever that may be, and you sort of tried to align yourself with those
Yeah.
expectations, or what you thought were those expectations, which I do think they were valid. They were really there,
Yeah.
and still may be there in some sense. I think it's a little bit more freedom. Talk about that trying to put yourself in this box, but then, finally having the freedom to just say, okay, I'm going to, be me.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked the question because it is something that I try to talk about a lot. And, as we all do, we mentor different, talent as they're coming up and coming out of college and giving them advice. And, I still think that there's this fear of looking different or being different. And, that comes in various shapes and forms. And, you bring up the hair situation. I have a lot of it and it's very curly. And, there was this like request to straighten it or pull it back or not wear this kind of jewelry, no dark lipstick. And I actually sat in a review where somebody told me that I wore too much makeup
Wow.
and that, my hair was very wild. And, at that stage in my career, I took that to heart and I was like, oh, well, I have to conform and I need to change. And, I need to act this certain way, or I need to curtail how I speak. I have a Jersey accent, I say things that are funny sometimes. And, getting all of that feedback was sort of, dampening my light, darkening the light. And really what was so great about me were all of those things and that passion and that I just say things and my hair's wild and you're going to get that crazy spirit. And, when I realized like, wow, somebody's trying to like blow out my candle, I can't let them do that, was really where my star started to shine. And I was just confident in myself and I wasn't going to let anybody say, you need to wear this outfit or you need to act a certain way. But sadly, Lisa, what I get from people is, say somebody's 22 and graduating from college and they say, well, but I'm trying to get a job,
Right.
So like I have to conform. And, what I try to do when I answer that question is say, I want them to hold true to who they are and for a company to accept them and bring them in. But, there's this tension between I need a job, I need to pay my bills, and what do I do? So then I look on the inside of organizations and I say, shame on you. If you're still asking and making people do this, and that's where I fall in love with campaigns like the one that Dove's doing, and it's for African American women, and they're doing that whole hair study and everything like that. But when I saw it, I posted it on LinkedIn because I was like, hey, I got you, girl. Like, I get it.
Mhm. No, but it's what you say is very true, though. Unfortunately, I mean, when you came to that realization, um, you weren't just starting out, and I'm not sure. You said that's when
Yeah.
you really were able to um, sort of set your, like, really light your fire at that time when you became more yourself. But were you in a position that could do that at that point? And as you said, now it has to be internally. We have to have corporations changing what their expectations are. But for those that are slow to do so, what would you say to that person you are mentoring, that 25-year-old, who's just starting out, and, maybe even that company isn't good for their personality, but
Yeah.
they need that job at least so to get to that next step of a company that's a
Right.
better fit. So how do you sort of navigate those waters?
Yeah. I think it's like, it's hard when you have to, take a job, but I mean, you're going to be more successful in a position where you can be yourself. Because if you're so focused every day on trying to be something that's not coming natural to you, then that's what I call wasted energy. So now you've spent all of that energy there where, you're performing at 40% because 60% of the time you're focused on what am I saying, how am I saying it, what am I wearing, and what do I look like? So, the advice is be patient and find an organization that matches you. And they exist today. There's so many startups. There's so many fresh thinking companies. Take a look at all the like digital tech companies. And you look around the hallways there, and everybody looks different and everybody's welcomed in so many ways. And look, I work at Bayer. You can't get more like corporate America than that. And we embrace all kinds of people. I wear my hair like this every day. I wear a t-shirt. And even when I was walking the halls at Bayer, there was never a wink or a nod in a different way. And I think that you need to find an organization that really aligns with your values, and they do exist, and be
Right.
patient to find it.
Right, because as you said, you're not going to shine that light of who you are if
Right.
you're trying to be someone else. And
Exactly.
you sort of touched on it a little bit with inclusivity in terms of, we're seeing so much more, consumers are expecting that now more now than ever, which is a great thing. It is shining that light on what, large industries, what brands need to be doing. But do you think, you talked about Dove and you talked about internally, like need to change, what your corporation is looking for. But in terms of when you're putting those messages out, putting those campaigns out, is it also the responsibility of those brand marketers to show, shine the light on those issues for people who don't have the spotlight on them? Or do you think, I mean, is it hard to do when you are talking with maybe a brand that can't take those big steps, like it's between, okay, they're consumers and what they can do that is right for, the world, basically, in terms of
Yeah.
their messaging. That's a hard line sometimes. Some brands it's easier, some not so. What do you say to that?
I say it's our responsibility. I think every corporation has a microphone, and, you have a stage, and you need to step up on that stage and do what's right, and even if it's, arming ourselves together to spread the right message. As a single consumer, you can feel a certain way, and you can even through social media share your opinion, but it's only going to get so far. But what I mean by corporations having this stage and this microphone, like we have marketing dollars, so people are going to hear what we have to say. We have a platform because consumers are buying our products and they're looking to us. And, we owe it to them to, do what's right by society and continue to carry forth that message. We're talking about inclusivity and diversity and all of that, but one of the things when I left the agency side and I started my own consultancy, it was focused in healthcare because that's something that I'm very passionate about. That's like my personal thing. And, in my sort of mission and manifesto was really helping brands, help the world live a healthier and better life, because only brands can do that because they have the dollars and the funding to help make that happen. And I believe that same thing to be true with inclusion and diversity, is that with the dollars that we have and with the stage that we have, we need to set forth and be an example, and share the right kind of messages that we're going to carry forth. Do we, like you said, do we meet some adversity there if the brand, it seems off brand for somebody? Well, I just say spend more time and educate people and bring them forward, and everybody will come along as long as you're continuing to communicate that message in an appropriate way.
Right. And again, starting internally and coming from inside out. But as you said, maybe you risk losing, alienating certain groups of people. But at the same point, if you educate, like you talked about, then hopefully then
Yeah,
everyone kind of, it's not to say conform, it's just to say, okay, we have all of these different sides we need to be able to showcase. So
exactly. Exactly. And take the steps that are right for you. Do you start walking? crawling? Do you get into a sprint? What's right for your brand? Some people just all of a sudden like, change things completely and the consumer gets confused. It's like, whoa, well, the other day you were this and now you're that. Well, you can get to that, but like take the right steps that you're not going to lose somebody along the journey. And I think that sometimes happens where, you try to shift too far and too fast. And it's like, well, you lost me. But if you bring somebody along on the journey, then I think the evolution and the timing of it all really works out for everybody.
Right. It's much more authentic as well. I mean,
Exactly.
you're bringing people with you. Well, I want to sort of ask you about, I know you obviously, as you said, you've had different, you started your own company, you worked for agency side, you've worked for brand side. Through all of that, has there ever been this sort of a silver lining where something maybe happened that was, traumatic or horrible, or you thought it was the worst thing possible, but then ultimately it turned out to be the best thing? Is there an experience or one specific that you can share?
Yeah, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but this question is a good one because I don't, I know you're on the West Coast, but on the East Coast in, I want to say 2013, 14, maybe it was around there, Superstorm Sandy happened.
Yep.
And that's where like all of the flooding occurred in downtown Manhattan and all over. Well, I lived in New Jersey, which was like right opposite the side of Manhattan, part of New Jersey. It was called Middletown, but my entire house was flooded. First floor, I lost vehicles. I lost I lost pretty much my home. And at that point, I was like, I was like doing great in my career. My husband's a New York City firefighter, and we had a lot of things. And we were very focused on like the stuff. And then literally that happened, and I'm like sitting there with nothing, with my dog and my husband, and I'm like, oh my God, like nothing matters, and it was like a complete shift. It was like the way that it happened was like a snap of a finger. And I was like, I don't need any of this stuff. I was like, literally, game changing for me. And it wasn't, although my mindset changed, I then moved to Atlanta. I was living in New Jersey. I moved to Atlanta, fast forward, and, different pace of life. And I enjoyed that change in my career. I was still with MSL Group. But then like, I started slowly slowing down because it was always like job, 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 job. Oh yeah, I gotta be VP by 30. I gotta do this by then. I gotta be 40 under 40. I gotta be power, power, power. I gotta be president and all of this stuff. But then, that sort of like started slowing me down a bit. And, when I came back to New York, I was like, you know what? I think I want to start my own thing and I want to consult and, I want to get into like health coaching and I wanted to do things that I was passionate about. And it really gave me a perspective that changed the way that I look at my career and my family and all the other things that matter. And I think it reprioritized things for me. And because of that, I feel like I'm more successful all around.
So you became like by not chasing what you thought you should be chasing, but really
Right.
listening to yourself, it it actually worked out best for you.
Yeah. And it finds you. It finds you. I have this wonderful and beautiful and great career at Bayer, that I didn't, I mean, I'm not trying to be, anything, but I didn't chase after it. It found me.
Wow. Well, I'm so sorry you went through all that, but and obviously, it was maybe sometimes we need to kind of step back
Yeah.
and, like you said, like you lose everything to figure out
Yeah.
really you had what's important. You had your dog, you had your husband, you had yourself. So it
Exactly.
definitely, I think sometimes it's nice to have that opportunity, everyone to have that. Not that everyone wants to go through that, and I wouldn't wish
Yeah.
that on anyone, but and hopefully with this new storm coming up, it's going to be safe for you too. I know that there.
Well, now I'm in South Carolina, so now I worry about hurricanes a lot of the time. But I've learned very good life lessons. My house is up high. I have a generator, and you take away from anything that happens to you negative. There's always key learnings to take away, and you apply them to life moving forward. So while it may have been one of the worst things that happened to me in my life, it's actually one of the best things. So I'm okay with it.
So are you keeping that? Now you are. You not don't have your own company, so you are with Bear, a huge organization. Have a VP position. Are you still able to kind of find that time for yourself, like a little bit slower? I know, I'm sure you're crazy with, work, but is there that, you know, are you balancing that, I guess, for lack of a better word?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say one of the things that Bayer's extremely great at is supporting their employees. And whether that means you have a family that you need to take a minute and do whatever that is, or you're a caretaker, or you have a special interest. But a lot of the benefit of me working and wanting to work at this company is how they support their employees. So for myself, I carve out a couple hours each morning. I go to the gym. I teach group fitness, and everyone knows that. It's not a secret. I don't try to hide it and pretend I'm on my phone and emailing people. I work, I get the job done. Everybody knows I'm going to get the job done. I'm fully accessible all the time. But those mornings to me are protected. I'd rather work till 9 o'clock at night than to start at 8 a.m. And everyone just knows that, and it's very well respected. So.
Yeah, uh, you're like me in a sense that I agree. I would rather sort of have my moment in the morning
Right.
and then work a little later, just because I'm not, I guess, a morning person. So
Me too. By like 9 o'clock, I'm asleep, to be honest with you.
So, I totally understand that. And is that do you feel like by having that time, and I think I know the answer, but I want to hear you explain it a little bit more. So by having that time where you're at your class, at your teaching, you're instructing, you're doing, as you said, health is your passion. Do you feel that makes you ultimately better for your employees, for your coworkers, and anyone else that you have to deal with professionally or even personally?
Yeah, well, the answer is yes. It fills my tank, right? So let's say you wake up in the morning and you start out on E. I fill my tank with joy and energy and all of that good juju, that then my day is the best day that I could possibly have. And the other thing I can liken it to is, like, a lot of people say this about health, wellness, and all that great stuff, but putting your mask on first when you're on the plane, in order for you to take care of somebody else, you have to take care of yourself first. You're no good to them. So I start my day taking care of myself and giving myself that energy and filling my tank, so that when I sit down at my desk or I start my conference call, that I am ready to go and I'm at my ultimate performance.
That's such a great analogy. When you first start saying mask, I'm thinking mask.
Oh, this
But
mask.
then,
This
but
mask.
then I realized that really is. That's a perfect example. And well, hopefully now we're getting away from, people out again. As I mentioned, we have our summit next week in Santa Barbara, but it is hybrid. We know that there are those who still can't travel, and we want to keep everyone's thoughts and we want to keep everyone in consideration. But I do think with this past year, and here we are talking, and we're seeing each other's homes, and things that won't change. Everyone's saying it's not going to go back to the same as was before. It's, as they say, new normal. But do you think that personalization, that seeing people more in their homes, having dogs or kids or husbands or wives walk through, and just having that kind of connection with your coworkers, do you think that's going to keep being that way? Do you feel like that personalized relationship is going to continue? And what do you think that means too? Is that making for a better work environment for you?
I certainly hope it does, because I think that, you sort of have this guard up a little bit when you get into the office. And, it's like, you put one picture on LinkedIn, and that's your sort of LinkedIn profile. And then you put another on like Instagram, and, that's more of like maybe who you are. And then like on Facebook, you have you and your family. So you have these different hats that you wear.
Mhm.
And I feel like what has happened is, with seeing the homes, and, you've seen all my hats now, so I'm not coming in the office with my best clothes on, with my, looking my best and all cleaned up. It's like sometimes I'm on a conference call and my hair's up in a bun. Sometimes I'm running into the kitchen because I'm hungry, or, oh, shoot, my dog's barking, or whatever's going on. And I think that what I love about it is I've connected with people in different ways that I never would have connected with in the office, because I didn't know that about them. I didn't see that level of authenticity. and I liked it, and we like it about each other. You know, there's something to be said for in person, and I like that most companies, when they're going back hybrid, so that you get that in person connection, but at the same time, we're still going to have that level of flexibility. Where we'll be in 5 years, I don't know. But you know, with just like with Superstorm Sandy for me, with bad things, good things happen. And I think, you know, if we were to evaluate and say, you know, what could we say about the pandemic and what good came out of it, is, you know, we know that people can work remotely and be successful at it. You know, we know that we wasted a ton of time commuting, hours and hours. I was one of those people on a bus into the city for 2 hours each way every day. Insane. You know, so you kind of learn a lot of these different things, and like family time, and keeping yourself busy in ways other than, you know, socializing and going out and here and there, you know, family time. So I do think that it was really great. And I hope some of that sticks around.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and even when it is back in person, and hopefully, as you said, maybe the work will be a little bit more where someone's remote, and or maybe it's only a few days, week, or whatever it may be, whatever the scenario is. But I think that even in person, hopefully those connections will stay. You know, sometimes I think it's
Yeah.
easier like this to maybe open up a little, and maybe in person not so much. But now that
Yeah.
you guys have opened up, maybe your employees will, you know, feel more comfortable going to you and asking you about something. It's just,
Yeah.
I think that that's a scenario that needed to be kind of, you know, maybe walked into, and maybe now we're there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too.
Hopefully. Well, I want to ask you questions a little bit. No segue. Oh, there's the dogs. Which two dachshunds? See, I wouldn't have known that about
Too.
you. They hadn't barked earlier when we first said hello. So, no, I want to ask you in terms of if you could live in any era, in any time, what would it be?
Wow, that's a fantastic question, which has never been asked of me. But I guess I'm like fascinated because I love the dresses, but like the roaring 20s, where, you know, you kind of like were wearing those beautiful, like really big bell dresses all the
Mhm.
time. And I also answer the question like that because, you know, that's really where, you know, women had to fight for something, and, you know, fight to have rights, you know, whether it was voting or anything, really, to have a seat at the table, if you will. And for me, I really would have loved to be part of that fight. I can see myself like getting in front and championing the whole thing. And I would have wanted to be one of those game changers that during that period of time.
Yeah, oh, I could totally see you doing that with your shaking, you know, dress. And
Yeah.
you probably have a
I would have
long
been the
sleeve
first one
sweater
in
or something
pants.
with the drink in the hand.
I don't
I
like
don't
this dress
drink,
is
smoke, or any of
awesome.
those things, but back then I would see you just to show we can do this as women.
That's right. That's right. I was actually one year for Halloween, Rosie the Riveter.
Oh, really? Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was this adult Halloween or child Halloween?
Adults.
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's awesome. So now what about a guilty pleasure? Is there anything, I mean, I know you have your workout in the morning and that's what, you know, for you, but is there a guilty pleasure, maybe something you kind of like want to just, you know, maybe sometimes you don't even want to admit to, or whether it be, you know, streaming a bunch of shows, or, you know, particular ice cream or whatever it may be, that's something that you enjoy doing?
Yeah. So that one's easy for me because I am a huge sports fan, and although I sit here and I preach like all health and wellness, and, you know, and I do, and I am committed to it, but at the same time, we're talking about guilty pleasure. So, you know, I really just love to chow down on some wings and beer and football on Sundays. So, like, you know, the diet is out, and I'm not counting calories, and I'm just there to have fun and drink some, like, you know, it's like women love wine, but I'm like, give me a good beer, an ice cold draft beer and some wings, and I'm ready to watch football. So
Very
that
cool.
I'd say is
So what,
mine.
you've been living in different areas. What's the team?
Well, embarrassed to say that I'm a Giants fan because they're terrible. But they did win this past Sunday, so I'll have to give it to them. But yeah, I'm a lifelong Giants fan since I was a little kid.
Yeah, well, Patriots, don't hate me too much.
Yeah, no, I don't. And I love Tom Brady and I just love what he's done with the Bucks, you know. So he's gone over there and to get to the Super Bowl and then to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I literally was like his biggest fan during that whole period of time. And then when they recently played Patriots, sorry, I was rooting for him because I'm
I
like,
was too. No, honestly, as a Patriots fan, but honestly, I just sometimes I think, I mean, I know I don't Tom Brady, I think gets a little bit because he's so good. I think he's a good punching bag too. And I feel
yeah,
bad for that. So I sort of kind of was rooting for him, just the
yeah,
way everything happened because since his first Super Bowl win, that, he turned it around for us. And to me,
yep.
that was the most exciting game. And then I just, watching him through that. So yeah, to be honest, I shouldn't admit it. My brother would kill me, but I was rooting for Tampa. So
I totally was, and he deserves credit. So you got to give credit where credit's due, and that's with women too. When you're in an organization or something's going on, like let's all lift each other up because that's where a rising tide lifts all ships. So if you're sitting next to a woman who's doing successful things, tell her she's being successful and help her with something so she'll help another and pay it forward. So I think that's how we will benefit each other in the long run.
yeah, no, I totally agree. So, well, to end things up, I like to just ask, what would your plan B be? If you could not be a marketer, what would you be doing? And again, I think I might know that answer, but let's
Yeah.
see. You may surprise me.
Yeah, I think if anybody was like listening and watching and paying attention to this, because I've mentioned health and wellness, and I do have my side career, if you will, that I do teach group fitness, but I would just be in the gym all day. Like I get so much satisfaction out of being there and just the whole vibe I get from it. Now, it doesn't really pay well, so there's that. But so, it would be like, in a world of, unicorns and rainbows, what would you want to do? And that would definitely be it. You'd find me in a gym doing something.
That's great. No, I love that. Well, I will know where to get fit if this should happen down the line.
Well, thank you.
Well, Denise, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And thank you. Again, I interview another exciting, influential marketing woman every week. So if you have someone that you would like me to sort of pull back the curtains on, just let me know and I'll do my best. So thanks for watching. And again, thank you so much, Denise.
Thanks, Lisa.